Sri Ganesha Sharada Gurubhyo Namaha. Sindhuraruna Vigraham Trinayanam Manikya Maulispurat Taranayaka Shekharam Smitamukhim Apina Makshuruham Panibhyam Alipurna Ratna Chashakam Raktotpalam Vibhratim Somyam Ratna Gadasta Rakta Charanam Dhyayet Param Ambikam. Welcome to all for this session on Lalitopakhyanam, the story of Lalita. And in the story, in the previous chapters, we have seen how Vishnu, the eternal foe of the Daityas, had seen that Bhandasura is rising in his power and capability, and Indra is losing his power and capability. So, because of that reason, and to ensure the downfall of Bhandasura, he created a Mayamohini and sent her to lure the Danava Bhandasura, and Mayamohini succeeded in that effort, taking the damsels along with her. And finally, Bhandasura fell for her in the love and lust of her. He forgot his world, he forgot his kingdom, he forgot his subjects, he forgot all the sadachara of worshipping the Shiva and performing the yagnas. And then finally, his power started keep on diminishing. In the meantime, Narada alerted the Indra and the Devathas and asked them to please Parashakti and get all the powers from her to ensure the downfall of Bhandasura. So Indra had led all the Devatas to the Himalayas and they started the tapas on the shores of river Bhagirathi. The Devatas joined Devendra in his tapas on the banks of Bhagirathi to propitiate Parashakti in their favor. This particular spot later became famed as Indraprasthapura. Thus passed 10,000 years like 10 days in japa and dhyana. Meanwhile, Shukra, the Danava Guru, became alerted and betook himself to the spot where Bhandasura and his chieftains were whiling away their time with Mohini and the other celestial damsels. He addressed Bhandasura thus in gentle and persuasive tones: O chief of kings, thou art their supreme lord, the Devatas are fearlessly roaming the three worlds at their pleasure, and the Lord of Rama is only waiting for an opportunity to destroy the Danavas. Please realize that you have been blinded by love of none other than the Vishnu Maya herself, who through her wiles has made you lose yourself in amorous and passionate acts to the exclusion of all else. Taking advantage of this lapse on your part, Indra and the Devatas are performing intense tapas to propitiate Parashakti, desiring victory over you. If Paradevi becomes pleased with their tapas, Indra is sure to bring about your downfall. Please, therefore, tear yourself away from the clutches of this Maya Mohini and proceed with your ministers and armies to the Himalayas and put an end to the austerities and tapas of your foe without further delay. Please rise up now. Tarry not any longer in your delusion, for it may be already too late to mend matters. Arise and save yourself while there may be some hope. There may yet be some hope. Turn from that wily Mohini before she brings you oi. Please arise from this ill advised torpor of Moha and let wisdom prevail. Thus roused to action and brought to his normal senses by his Guru Shukracharya, Bhandasura left his couch of lust and called together all his ministers for consultation. Having been apprised of the situation, Minister Shrutavarma spoke thus: O Lord of Daityas, 60,000 years of undisputed sovereignty has been granted to you by Lord Shiva as a boon. It is now long past that period, and several more years have rolled by. Means the 60,000 years is already passed away, and many years are passed after that. It would be therefore futile to think of retaining sovereignty much longer. It will not be possible for us to obstruct the tapas of the Devathas. Wheel and Voi are like two diametrically opposite points on the ever revolving wheel of time. We have had our share of happiness and power all these many years. Now it is our lot to share the opposite for a week like period. Hearing this, Minister Bhimakarma sprang to his feet and said, O great and invincible hero of the Danavas, it is ever unwise to allow the enmity to get stronger in any way. We can and we must put an end to their tapas by obstructing it at all cost. Victory shall be yours alone. For has not Shiva granted you a boon whereby half of the strength of your enemies will pass into yourself, nor can their weapons have any effect on you, and success for you is ever assured. Let us therefore rush to the place where our foes are performing tapas and destroy them without delay. Bhandasura was thus roused to action, and he immediately gathered together his armies and marched to the Himalayas. Parashakti, whom the Devas had been propitiating all these thousands of years, put up an illusory barrier around them so that the Danavas may not molest them. Surprised, Bhandasura and his host wondered as to who could have cast such a barrier in their way so suddenly. However, Bhandasura soon became wrathful at having seen thus thwarted in his attempt, and he smote the barrier with all his might with one of his veritable astras and succeeded in removing it. Paradevi immediately put up another barrier stronger than the first. This too Bandasura succeeded in removing with the aid of his Maha of wind, known as Vayavyastra. No sooner had the second barrier disappeared than there arose up a third, the stronger one, stemming his advance. This also Bhandasura destroyed only to find another barrier take its place. Having thus been repeatedly foiled in his attempt, Bhandasura lost his patience and retired to his capital in great frustration and deep disgust. The Devathas, in turn, were also frightened by the sudden appearance and disappearance of so many barriers near them, and not knowing their cause, made preparations to flee. Deva Ramana, Deva Ramana intervening, accosted them and spoke words of encouragement to them. Thus, I have seen our enemies, the Danavas, approach and then back away as a result of those barriers. Therefore, fear not. If you now flee from here, who is there to give you succor? Hear therefore and listen to what I say. It is impossible for us as we are to vanquish Bhandasura, nor is there anyone else. Only Devi can rescue us. Hence, let us continue our efforts and propitiate her. Let us follow the Shastras in this respect. Parameshwara will take care of the rest. It is not well to abandon and leave incomplete what we had gathered here to accomplish. Listen, I shall now outline our future course of action. Erect a Homakunda measuring a yojana in accordance with the Kratu rules and kindling a most effulgent fire therein, feed it with all available purified flesh as an offering unto Parashakti with all sacrificing devotion. O Mahatmas, may we vanish through the great home of fire and become part of the Brahma Bhuta. If we cannot regain our Sarga Bhoga, for there is no other alternative, accordingly, Indra and his Suras jointly built the Homakunda as per the plan, chanting mantras, kindled a great and glorious fire, tending it with purified flesh offering. At last, all available flesh had been purified and offered into the Homakunda. There was no more flesh forthcoming to feed it. The Devas therefore cut off their limbs and began to purify and offer them. As they were about to offer their entire bodies in sacrifice by flinging themselves into the great fire, devotedly and with the greatest of self surrender, a mighty blinding flash of immense brilliance burst forth from the flames, most unique and incomparable in effulgence and magnificence. The great mass of Jyoti was brilliant as unto the rising of a crores of suns, but diffusing the cool comfort of 10 million moons. In the middle of the blazing mass was discernible the form of Sri Yanthra, in the center of which shone Paradevi of the color of the rising sun. She was the sustainer of the universe and the heart of Brahma, Vishnu, and Rudra. He was the essence of all beauty personified and the ocean of ecstatic bliss. Her color equaled that of the japa flower, her raiment the color of the Gadimi flower. He was bedecked all over the jewels and ornaments of celestial gems, pure and clear. He was the source of all Srinagara and beauty par excellence. For from the corners of her eyes emanated rays of mercy like moonbeams. She had 4 arms bearing a noose, a gourd, a sugarcane bow, and 5 flowery arrows. The joy of Indra and the Devas knew no bounds on beholding Paradevi before them. When they all prostrated themselves before the august presence of Paradevi, they made repeated salutations to this Atma of all creation. The mother of the universe turned her life giving smile towards them and shed the lights of her protective gaze on their bodies, and lo, they were made whole, and their bodies shone with celestial brightness, making them strong, handsome, and invulnerable. Thus freed from fear and filled with deep devotion and ecstatic joy, they sang aloud in praise of Kameshwari. Thus, in this chapter, we have seen in the beginning the Devathas have started doing the tapas to please the Parashakti or Paradevi. And knowing this, Shukracharya, the guru of Danavas, got alerted and he went and he woke up Bhandasura from the lust of Mayamohini and all his ministers. And thus, Bhandasura, being alerted by Shukracharya, he called for a meeting and he decided to destroy the penance or the destroy the tapas being committed by the Devatas. However, when he went to Himalayas to attack the Devatas, the barrier, a Maya barrier, was put forth by the Paradevi herself. And when Bhandasura tried to destroy it, repeatedly, the barriers were put by the Paradevi so that she distracted Bhandasura and forced him to return back to his city. Meanwhile, the Devatas who were watching these barriers being put up were not knowing who is putting up the barrier. They were in a fear to run away from the spot. And then they were stopped by their guru, who told them that this is the time you build a huge homakunda spreading over a yojana in length and put a glorious fire in that. Start offering the flesh from your own body into that through the mantras. Then they built a homakunda and they start plucking the flesh from their body and they started offering it to her with great devotion. And at the end of it, when all the flesh was completed, they started cutting off their hands and limbs and throwing it into the homakunda. And finally, at one point, they offered their entire body into the homakunda. And at that point, when they offered everything to the Paramatma, the Atma of every living being, Paradevi appeared in a supreme brilliance in the mid of a Sri Yanthra. On seeing her, all the Devathas were filled with the great devotion for her and started praising her. Namaste Sharada Devi, Kashmira Puravasini, Twamaham Prarthaye Nityam, Vidya Danancha Dehime. Goodbye.